Greetings, folks. Welcome back to the Jason Damico Show. It's great to be back. A little bit of a hectic day today. Glad to be kind of airing out here and get into our guests. Incredible lineup of talents. Per usual, want to thank iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, Simplecast, especially Simplecast for their distribution to all those great platforms. Thank you so much. And to the viewers and the listeners, YouTube as well, since it is syndicated on YouTube visually. Now, our guest today, as always, is a special guest on the show. Every guest is a special guest on the show. He is an entrepreneur, producer, engineer, and musician who resides in Hollywood, California. Owner of the Alter Studios in Los Angeles. He's worked with artists across the country in many different facets, recording and producing for hip-hop, R&B, in-house on the daily. Notable artists include Cheo Nash, Lil Chucky, Ice Narco, Ice Cold Bishop. He released a full-length classical guitar album in 2020 titled My Love, which was self-produced. In 2018, he constructed his studio, The Altar, and has since turned into a flourishing recording studio since. His journey started at age 12 when he fell in love with music. Instrument of choice is the guitar, originally from Albuquerque, and graduated from the Musicians Institute with a BA in guitar performance. He's toured the world as the lead guitarist for the house band Samurai Fish, for the Vampire Diaries, and once upon a time, Star Trek fan conventions. He's also spent time teaching guitar, working on post-production, scoring for films. Please welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, my new good friend from TikTok, Mr. Stewart Tuttle.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
A lot going on there, man. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. I've been in Los Angeles 11 years now, so since then it's just been, even before that, but since being in Los Angeles, like obviously like the floodgates open to the industry, that's
right. So, what brought you out there? Was it just for opportunities? How did you get out there?
School. It was definitely school. I had always since I got into music, I guess let me back up. My mom's a teacher, educator, so I kind of like I never felt pressured to go to college, but I kind of like it was kind of like, oh, that's what you do. You go to college, you get a degree in something, and you do it. And I was like, well, fuck, I'm gonna do it in music,
Right.
The school of choice that I figured out I wanted to go to from early on, because it had so many accolades, was Musicians Institute. Like they had ads in guitar magazines and stuff like that, and I was like, that's where I want to go. Like great people went there and stuff like that. So it was always I wanted to go there. So after I graduated high school, did a little bit of community college in Albuquerque, I moved to LA to start school.
Yeah. Well, let's take a step back to kind of your beginning stages. It says that you started playing around 12.
Yeah.
And fell in love with music. I was curious to hear a little bit about that time period in your life and influences.
For sure. Yeah, that was an incredible time. That was like the discovery of I guess on a more personal level, like I had heard some music before, but to where like all of like me and my friends, we all started like diving headfirst into and at the time it was metal, like that was what everyone we all wanted to listen to, like hearing Metallica for the first time, shit like that, hearing Pantera for the first time, all that, and you're like, you see these guys, and the first show that I went to was Damage Plan, the Pantera offshoot band. And seeing Dimebag at 12, the year that he died, that show was the most incredible show I've ever been to.
Oh my God.
It was like that day that I was like, that's all I want to do. I want to play music. I want to be a part of that. I want to be up on stages, I want to do that thing. So that kind of sparked that interest in me to like, all right, let's figure out how I got to do this and like what I want to do.
I got to ask real quick, favorite records for Pantera and Metallica? Just
my favorite Metallica record is And Justice for All, for sure, 100%. Pantera, man, like that's hard. I would probably say Cowboys from Hell is probably my favorite.
Man, I would say the exact same thing. Yep.
I mean, I love the heaviness and the attitude of the later albums, though, for sure, and they definitely have a different vibe to them. But like, I think for me, it's at least Phil's versatility vocally, like what he does on that first album with him
Yeah.
screaming shit, like like oh my god, that's crazy.
Well,
Like
not
that's
only that, but I feel like the solos too were
yeah,
and then they really started going more kind of like, I don't know if it's not grindcore, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. It's just a little
yeah.
bit more
More riff
angry.
based, a little less solo based.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
so yeah, but I love all the Pantera stuff for sure. Like it's all good. Same thing with Metallica. Like I'm a huge Metallica fan. They're my favorite band to see live. I've seen them 4 times. And I love all their albums. I know I get a lot of shit for that, for like everything after, like Injustice, but like I see them as an artistic band. Like
Oh
to
yeah.
me to me they like expand beyond what metal is, and like they're just trying to make music, and like they got shit for that because they didn't sound like their first 4 albums or first 3 albums or whatever and stuff like that, but they've always had an evolution to them, and them as also a business entity. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy what they've been able to do. They own all their own masters. They have their own record label. Like they tour whenever they want, and they sell out shows everywhere. And like it's pretty crazy. And they put on an amazing show, like live. Like the energy that they bring, like as a unit, is incredible.
So they had their own label from the beginning.
No, they started Blacken Records, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, and then that's
Okay.
why, if you remember, they'd like been remastering all their albums. Those were all re-released on the new label.
Gotcha.
That's kind of why that happened.
Gotcha. Because I know Blackened has been around,
Yeah,
but I didn't know
it
exactly.
may be longer than that, bro. My sense of time, maybe like 8 years. Maybe it was closer to when they released Death
You think it was
Magnetic.
Death Magnetic
It
when
may
they
be.
did it?
It could have been that long. I'd have to check on that.
Yeah.
It was either Death Magnetic or post Death Magnetic for sure. It was nothing before that. I know that.
Right. I wonder who they were with before. I don't
Uh,
know. I'd have to look
they
it
were on
up.
an offshoot of Epic, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, I don't know actually.
Interesting. Well, to me, they're genius. They've been incredibly influential for me
For
personally,
sure.
uh, especially with the Bob Rock, era when that happened.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I mean, yeah, he definitely took them to a different level. Like, I mean, sonically, like, just take away like what the riffs sound like or whatever, like, or like what type of riffs they're playing and what type of songs they're creating. But sonically, the Black Album sounds fucking crazy. Like that
Yeah.
sounds like it. Like if a metal, if an AC/DC record were like it sounds as big as an AC/DC record. Like if Metallica like had the production style, like you listen to fucking like Heaven or sorry, Highway to Hell, or like the Back in Black, like those albums are huge. Like the production on them is crazy. And so yeah, Bob Rock elevated the production of the Black Album to it's crazy. It's
And
insane.
the amazing thing for me as well, because that was a template for me, really, when self-educating and just trying
Mm,
to get mixes
right?
as great as possible. That was always a template for me because it didn't lack anything, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Mm-mm.
And the weird thing is, going back to it now, after being in that frenzy of like, I have to figure out I have to like reverse engineer this and figure out how the hell to make
Yeah.
drums sound like this and make low end sound like this and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I go back and I'm like, man, there's so many things about this record that they don't even make sense. Like when you look back on it, it's like, God, the drums are so loud, the guitars are lower in the, it's like all these
Yeah.
things that you listen to but it just smacks. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? It
Yeah.
just smacks, and it's like every time when all else fails, I go back to that as a reference, and it's even multi-genre just to get a balance,
For
a
sure.
sense of balance, and like it, it's so girthy,
Yeah.
and I think it's because of Bob Rock's
Yeah.
maybe lack of compression in certain instances, and then smashing things in certain. It's just
Yeah.
brilliant. It's just freaking brilliant.
Yeah, because it has an excitement to it in certain elements, and then some elements are tamed down or whatever. But like, yeah, I remember like first starting out as like recording myself and like doing mixes and stuff, and I always put guitars super super loud. Like
Right.
guitars is gonna be like I because that's my main instrument, I think. But like I always want to hear the guitars loud. But like you're saying, when you deconstruct the mix of the Black album, the guitars aren't that loud. It's the
No.
drums that are they're just huge, and
Yeah.
that makes that sound. That it almost it almost makes you perceive the guitars louder than they are. Like it's weird, but they're not.
Well, and it always, so me being a drummer first, I
Okay.
was always fascinated with the Van Halen records
Mm,
and Police and
okay.
Metallica because it always sounded to me like, and Pantera too, it
Yeah.
always sounded to me like I was behind the kit, in a
Mhm.
way. And it was kind of the drummer's perspective. Not, I don't think the Black Album was like that, but I know Vinny and Stewart Copeland, they were doing drummer's perspective, and it
Oh,
sounded
okay.
like you were behind the kit. It was this
Yeah.
weird perspective, but it always made more sense to me than the other way around.
Got you.
And just oh god, those records.
Amazing. Amazing. And yeah, the actually the first the early Van Halen records are those are like mono, like they're like everything's panned to one side and like
Yeah, and very guitar light because
yeah,
when you really think about it, it's again a lot of drum information,
yeah,
a lot of drum and vocal information, and the lead again. It's another great example. Van Halen. It's like the guitar solos are almost fighting with the cymbals. Yeah,
yeah.
but it's the sound.
It works.
It works.
I don't know.
I don't
It's
know either, man. Uh, we'll come back to all this because we got to have a good segment on engineering and just we'll get
for
into it.
sure.
I want to get into your creative process real quick as far as how you got into classical guitar and
Okay.
songwriting and just how you go, and we can hit
So
multiple angles of it, but wherever you want to start first.
yeah, so definitely classical guitar was kind of that's so I guess I started classical guitar because the high school that I went to had a classical guitar class. So I'm like, well, obviously I'm going to
Right.
be in guitar class, like, and so they're teaching classical guitar, so I'm going to learn classical guitar. And then at the same time, I found a private teacher who was teaching like his main style of guitar was classical guitar too. So I studied with him outside of school, and then I do classical guitar in school. Um, and I think there's also like a little bit of at least like in Albuquerque as a city, like there's kind of a decent classical influence, like or scene, would you I guess you would say, like because of the university.
Mm-hmm.
The University of New Mexico has a pretty like renowned classical guitar program, stuff like that. So that's when I started studying classical guitar. I wouldn't say heavily, and I wouldn't even say like I was heavily like really studying music back then. Like I learned how to like once I got to LA and started studying music, then I was like, all right, like this is like I progressed, and then I was like, damn, like, all right, now I'm like doing like literally 6, to 10 hours a day, like practicing guitar, shit like that. Like,
Right.
um, growing up, I've always been involved in a lot of different things. I was pretty active athlete, so I do a lot of, do a lot of sports stuff, and I actually did pretty decent in school. So like I did spend time with, it's like always split. I wasn't
Right.
always just like growing up was always hard because I kind of always wanted just to do just music, but I was never able to because I did like other things. But so I played classical guitar in high school, and then obviously chose not to go the route of a classical conservatory or something like that. I chose to go to doing contemporary. So I got to MI. There was one teacher there that was a classical like player too, so I kind of started doing like some private lessons with him and just kind of kept my chops up. I always wanted to do a classical guitar album or something, and I just like, it was in the back of my head. So through some frustrations with being in original bands and not ever having a finished product out because of whatever reason it was, like,
Right.
you know,
Right.
things just never went the way that I wanted them to. So I was like, fuck it, 2018 coming. I am going to I'm gonna do an album, and I'm gonna do everything as far as like that I've always wanted to do with a band, like as far as like do merch, do an album release party, actually release CD, so I release it on a physical media as well,
Hmm.
and do everything that it takes and do the production and everything. And so I spent about, I think I started it in mid to 2016, and then it took me till the end of 2018 to finish that album, that record. So that a lot of it involved just like heavy practice. Like that's when I was playing classical guitar like 6 hours a day, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like really, really diving into songs and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go with it, and that's how that kind of took off. And yeah, that was, that in 2018. So it was me doing the classical guitar album and building the studio at the same time. So like that was a lot too as well.
I bet. And I was going to bring up entrepreneurship and wearing multiple hats.
Yeah.
I get it. You know, I'm on the same. I'm in the same boat.
I feel like you have to nowadays. Like honestly, unless you're some sort of prodigy in one area or
Yeah.
another, to where you're going to be able to build a team around you that's going to be able to do like things. Like I've tried to have people help me, but like I want things a certain way, and like I just end up doing a lot of things myself.
Yeah. It's where I'm finding a lot of a threshold that I'm meeting, and it's I'm at basically full capacity.
Yeah.
I have to start outsourcing, and a lot of that
Mm.
is happening this year where it's just a lot. And um there's really, I get it, because if you go down the road of trying to have somebody else do it, you're just going to waste more time unless they can do it better than you. And if
Yeah.
that's the case, it's usually going to cost a pretty penny, or
Exactly. I was going to say it's a financial thing.
yeah, or it's going to be a headache down the road. You, unless there's a win-win and there's a collaboration aspect, which I find in this day and age to be one of the best
Yeah.
resources. Uh, but again, being able to put it kind of like a Venn diagram right in the middle and hit all those sweet
Mhm.
spots at once, it
It's tricky
takes some strategy.
for sure.
Yeah,
Strategy and organization, man. Like I'm like that's the trickiest part about it. Is I feel like I'm pretty organized, but still in my head I'm not as organized as I want to be. And I know if I can get to a really high level of organization, then I can start knocking more things out at once,
right, right.
things like that. But it's still tricky. It's tricky and it's exhausting.
Well, yeah, and then you have to also, you don't want to constrain yourself too much, because that's where the magic is
Yeah.
artistically.
Bro, yes. Yes, exactly. Keeping
Tell
that
you, man.
spontaneity as a create, like being an entrepreneur, which is, it's creative to degrees for sure. Like there's definitely creativity involved in it, but I think being an entrepreneur, there's more discipline involved in that aspect of it. Whereas a creative and as artistic people, like we want to be spontaneous, and when that shit strikes, we want to be able to capitalize on. We want to be able to
Yeah,
like, all right, I was going this way, but I'm going this way now because I'm here.
right.
So that, like, those sides of the brain fight a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. Let's talk a little bit about multiple hat wearing. Maybe there's some advice you'd like to share with the viewers as far as things that you've perhaps benefited from a self-development point of view, tricks along the way. Everybody's different. Everybody's got a real, I think self-awareness is a great place to start.
For
But,
sure. Yeah.
anything that comes to mind.
I think self-awareness is definitely key, and knowing your strengths and weaknesses, like that's all within self-awareness for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, but like, you got to know what you want in life. I feel like it's interesting because I accomplished everything that I set out to do. The trick with that is I made it vague in the beginning what I wanted to do. Like when I was a kid, I was like, literally, my dream was like, all right, I just want to be able to like do music,
Yeah.
like vaguely music. You know, I
Right.
loved guitar, but I was like, I don't care if whatever it involved in music, as long as I'm able to make a living out of it. And I find myself just doing music. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
different things,
That's
you know.
cool,
So
man.
versus if I would have been, you know, like I'm curious, like if I was a kid and I would have said like, you know, like I just want to be a guitar player. I want to be a guitar player and tour the world and that's all I want to do. Like I probably would have been able to do that if that was my mindset from the beginning, you know, because
Right.
that kind
Right.
of focuses you on where you need to be. But but yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky, at least for me and what I'm doing. Like I feel like I have to have a level of discipline. I have to have a really strong level of discipline, even as a creative too. Like, all right, like, you know, because this is a job. This is how I make my living. So like, I don't necessarily get to choose when I'm gonna be creative, you know? Like, all right, I have a session and like this artist wants to like work on start a new record. So I have to on the spot like be creative whether I feel like it or not, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, like a vibe in a room, like that helps. So like if you already know you're going into a good vibe, like, you know, it's gonna be a
Yeah.
lot easier to be creative in that sense. But you know, it's not always like that, you know. Sometimes you're just like, you know, put on a show, you know,
Yeah.
whether you're feeling or not. And it's the same way as a performer on stage, you know, you're not always feeling like you want to be on stage, you know, like sometimes you have off days, but like you have to like as a professional, you have to figure out a way to put yourself in that other space of like, you know, this is what I need to be doing, like literally leave all your bullshit at the door whenever you're
Yeah.
doing it, you know.
Yeah. I think it's the same in any profession where,
Yeah.
you have to perform, deliver,
Yep.
like sales or anything else.
Yeah, for sure. You know, the skills that I do in this could be crossed over into so much stuff for sure.
Right. Right.
Um, but yeah, yeah, I think discipline is key. And like I've gone through stages of being more disciplined and less disciplined. Like I remember sometimes in school, I would literally have a spreadsheet of like my day planned out with like fucking like 30, 40 items of things like my like minutes planned out and stuff like that. And I would
Yeah.
go through times like that. And like then I've gone through times like where I just go and I don't even put things in my calendar and like it's just you know
It
I
just
need to find
depends.
a balance. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a flexibility there. I think if 2020 taught us anything, it's you know, you got to be flexible.
For sure. Yeah. And I got lucky in that too for sure because like 2020 hit, COVID hit, right? And all of a sudden all my friends lost all their gigs. Ironically, all my live playing gigs ended before COVID actually hit. Like I had a cover band that I was doing, and that ended because the lead singer slash actually he's just lead singer, the front man of the band, he had a kid and he wanted some more time with his kid, things like that, like life stuff for him. And then my band that I was touring with for the past 5 years doing the convention circuit, they had told us that we weren't going to be doing any conventions that year, and that was
Right.
all pre-COVID. So those were like two of my main performing gigs where I'd make make my living doing those, and then the studio. So I was like, I had lost those before that, so I was like, all right, that's cool. Like the studio was already starting to pop off, so I was like, I'm obviously just gonna keep pushing this. But then COVID hit, and like I see all my friends around me lose all their work, all their tours, everything is just gone. I'm like,
Yep.
oh my god, this is crazy. Like so yeah, like drummers specifically, I remember a lot of drummers like, all right, now we're gonna create home studios and like start doing session work out of our homes and things like
Yep.
that. Like that got really popular, and session musicians in general, like, all right, we need to learn how to record now.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
so that
Yeah.
flexibility and like and that's the industry though. You have to this industry, you have to be flexible where things go because it's so unpredictable, and like you got to be ready. um One that was upon leaving to LA, I had a guitar tech back in Albuquerque, and that was he had I'm forgetting the guitar player's name, but he was Chris Isaac's guitar player is like guitar tech for like on the road for many years.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really amazing guitar tech. Like one of those guys you go in and like he talked to you for an hour about like the guitar, like just like nerdy ass shit. Like for a while, like I learned a lot from him, and I remember like the one thing that he told me upon moving to LA was like be ready, and like that had always stuck with me since then, and like it's so true. Like you got to be ready when situations happen, because if you're not, like that moment could pass you by, and like you never know what that could have been. You
Right.
know,
Right.
I don't think I don't necessarily believe in once in a lifetime opportunities. I imagine it does happen to some people, but I definitely see it as you get lots of opportunities thrown your way in life, and like
You got to make them.
yeah,
You got to make them. That's at least where I'm at. I'm big into that placement right now mentally.
for sure.
Because you can, again, that reference point in 2020 and that reflective period, that can get really wishy-washy with, the brain starts turning, well, what if we can't play
Yeah,
live ever again the way that we thought we could? You take things for granted, and then you think of, man, I would have pushed harder in this area or that area or that. But I agree with you. I think it's the positive, healthy perspective to take is that every day is a new day.
yeah, yeah. You have to. It's so crazy, and the internet has compounded it too. Like
Oh yeah,
because before it was just real life, and now we have real life and our social media life, which is in a lot of respects it's another type of life. It's weird, it's very strange,
yeah.
very strange, and then they merge too. But like the amount of connections I've made through social media have been incredible. Like it's definitely I've battled with it a lot. I was off social media for 3 years because I was like, this is just it was messing with my head, like
Rough, man.
psychologically, like what this is doing to me. I don't know how old you are, but like I'm 31 right now, so like I definitely remember the age before all this, like
Mm-hmm.
and like jumping into it and seeing the evolution, and just like I'm a person that thinks about, like, I love psychology and sociology and like
Me
philosophy
too,
and
man.
things like
Me
that.
too.
And so
Yep.
like that kind of messed with my head for a while, and I was like, I can't be a part of this. And then like I really had to come to grips with, all right, I think actually I was hearing Gary Vee talk about social media, and him and his perspective on social media definitely changed how I felt about
Gary Vee's changed a lot of people.
yeah, for sure.
Gary
Yeah.
Vee's like a
100%.
tank, man. I mean, some days you want to slap him. Most
Yeah.
days, though, it's right. He's right. The
Yeah.
bastard's right. I
Yeah.
mean,
And so, yeah, so his thoughts on social media and like just his approach to it is like, all right, yeah, I see that. It makes sense. There's so much positivity into it. And so diving deep into social media that way, like I've seen the benefits of that, and seen the connections and the people that I've met through that over time. Now in retrospect, I'm like, it's been pretty positive for the most part. I still struggle with certain things, but like for the most part, like it's awesome. Like I know you because of an app. Like that's weird.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great way to look at it is it's a neutral playing ground, and how
Yeah,
you choose to play on it is up to you.
exactly.
And of course, there's a lot of bad apples and trolls out there. And thank God for delete and block. That's
Yeah, for
one
sure.
thing that I've had to really get used to. Um, yeah, you go viral a couple of times, man, and it's just like, wow,
I
this
have
is
I haven't. The closest I've been to doing something viral was I did it on Twitter. I commented on a tweet, and it went like my comment got like 80,000 views on it. I'm like, and then people are just like bashing me and stuff. I'm like,
that's
this is
viral, man. That
wild.
in my
I'm like,
books is viral. I mean, it's not like crazy viral,
but it's
you
a
know,
taste of what it is, like,
but
because
it's
they
enough to get that like,
yeah.
man, this is just nuts.
Yeah, and obviously that's the environment of Twitter in general too. So
Oh
it's like
yeah.
that's a whole different like ball game versus any of the other platforms.
Yeah, Twitter has never been my thing. I've honestly, even when I had, right now we're self-managing with between the business and the studio
Okay.
and me as an artist. But even when I had my management for about 3 or 4 years,
Mm.
we put that thing on autopilot. That thing
Yeah.
was just constantly blurring out or blurping out anything that we put on Facebook
Got you.
or
The cross
Instagram,
posts.
whatever. Yeah, like whatever we had, it was interconnected. Twitter to me just never made sense as an artist because there's no gallery. You only have a certain amount of characters. A lot of it's just talk,
Yeah.
and to me, YouTube, Instagram, now TikTok's a whole other animal,
For sure.
which is where, we met. And that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know. Yeah, I don't use it that heavily. Like I have a friend that's like he has a decent following on there, so he'll retweet me a lot. Like
Mm,
an artist that I've met through there, and but some artists are reaping the benefits of it, and I think more so in the hip hop community, that's kind of where Twitter is a little bit more big as far as
right,
artists. So
right.
that's kind of more like a ground for that genre of music. But yeah, it's still I don't really know what to do with it. I'm not consistent on it. Let's put it that way. And I am slightly a little afraid of it now. I'm like, all right, I got to really watch what I post because I'm not trying to go viral on there for like that type of thing. Like,
Right.
like, and then I do like my tweets and like, oh, like 3 people will like it, like whatever. Like, but, but I definitely fell in love with TikTok like that. TikTok has been pretty
It feels
incredible. I
natural
wrote,
for
I
you
wrote,
when I'm looking.
yeah.
Yeah, it's I love the content, man. It's great.
I appreciate it. I wrote it off for a while because I was like, this is just all about like kids dancing and shit and
Yeah.
like and I had my roommate, he just kept telling me, he's like, no, there's like instructional stuff on there and I still it's weird because you really just have to like work the For You page for a while before you start seeing what it actually is, right? Like
Yep.
maybe like spend like 5 hours on that. And then once the algorithm like knows what your interests are, then it's done. You're done.
Yep.
You're done. That's it.
Yep. It's there seems to be a community really flourishing right now in the music production world,
Yes.
engineering,
Yeah.
a lot of great players, and it's it's a paradox, man, because it feels like it's more focused, but it's not.
Yeah,
It's
right.
I don't know how to explain it. It's focused because you got to really get your point across in less than 60 seconds. I mean, preferably
That's the
15 to
tricky.
20.
Yep.
But at the same time, it forces you to dilute down the ultimate message. I mean, it's a cognitive brain teaser. It's a
It's
lot of
tricky
creative energy just putting into a 15-second video. It takes at least 50, at least on my end, it takes at least 15 minutes, 30 minutes to edit and make sure I've got all my ducks in a row before I send it out.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
it's definitely tricky. That was the one thing I was like when I started shooting them, I'm like I just like my brain would kind of freeze up. I'm like, I gotta say what I want to say in 60 seconds. That's crazy. Like, what? I got a
right.
lot to say about this, and then like, all right, let's figure out like how to start doing like cuts and shit like that to where like obviously you don't need like when you actually like break down how you're speaking, you don't need to say everything that you're saying, things like that, and just and you grabbing people's attention too, and then just putting out useful information that people want to know about.
You got
um,
about 2 seconds, I think. I mean, real, God honest truth. You got about 2 seconds to
yeah.
grab somebody's attention if you're lucky. Usually it's probably 1 or 1.5.
Yeah, no, I know from personal experience as far as just scrolling, like when I was heavily scrolling, it's like, yeah, like 2, 3 seconds, that's it. Like, all right,
Yeah.
next. But yeah, so
Um, let's talk about the studio and then we'll get into some gear and whatnot.
for sure.
So when did you build it?
2018. But I mean, I built the current studio I'm at. So what that entailed was basically I didn't build like the walls and stuff, but basically I renovated it.
Right.
I did knock out the wall to put the glass in so I
Mm-hmm.
could go into the other room, things like that. But it was about 5 months of labor, like working like all the time on this shit, like painting and doing flooring and building cables and
Yep.
like building sound treatment and ceilings and lighting and like literally everything other than the structure.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but I've always had a studio, let's put it that way. Like at first it was a home studio. I kind of started work like how I started engineering was just engineering for friends or like producing for friends, like, like in my bedroom, you just mess around on records. And then I think it was 2015 is when I got my first actual client. So I started working with a band that I started helping them produce their EP, and I worked on that EP with them for actually like 2 years.
Wow.
And during that process was when I learned how to like mic drums. And like I remember we recorded drums for some of the tracks like 3 different times because I didn't get them right, like things like that. Like a lot of falling on my face because I didn't go to school for audio engineering. Like I kind of knew how to run Pro Tools, but like I didn't know anything
Yeah,
about
you
audio.
went for guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a lot of like self-learning and stuff like that. And then that was I had it was a one-room studio. It was like a 13 by 14 foot room. So it was a pretty big room with 12-foot ceilings. I had that studio from 2014 or 2015 to 2018, and that's when this studio became available. And that studio is like actually in the same, so where I'm at is like what they call lockout. So there's a bunch of like rooms in here with
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
bands playing. Most of them are band rooms. Like there's tons of bands up here. So I got offered another room that had two. I always wanted two rooms, and I kind of manifested that. And he's like, "Yo, I got this thing that has two, because I wanted like, I want to be in here, and well, they can be in there."
Yeah.
And so it was offered to me, and I took it, and I just, people are gonna think I'm crazy, but like I literally was like, I had all these visions for it. I'm like, I'll knock this out in a weekend. Like this shit took me. I worked on it like I think a solid 3 months of like to get it to where I needed it to be of like construction, and then I've done like small like little upgrades since then. Like I'll take a weekend off, do a ceiling or things like that. But I think in total I spent probably like 5 months on it in 2018 and through
Wow.
2018 and 2019, like constructing it. And
Yeah.
then 2019, yeah, 2019, summer of 2019 was kind of when I fell in the hip hop community, and then that's where my life switched. Like it flipped, and I was just working with all hip hop artists from then on, pretty much. Like
Wow.
90% of the artists I work with.
Wow. And monthly basis, weekly basis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yearly basis. I have artists that like I worked with, like there's a lot of artists that I'll work with that fly in from out of state.
Wow.
Yeah,
Very
so
cool.
that's actually pretty
It,
frequent.
it's got to be through word of mouth, I would think.
That's a whole nother crazy story. Yeah, I basically met a guy. I literally met a guy. He goes by the name Little Khaled. And if you know anything about regular Khaled, he's pretty much like him. And his eccentric, I can't even say it, and how eccentric he is, right? Like,
Yeah.
and just like how much of a character he is, and how he connects people.
Right.
So I met this
He's a
guy.
matchmaker.
He's a matchmaker, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So I met this kid, Little Khaled. He's younger than me. I call him a kid, but I literally met him outside of my studio and blew him off the first time I met him because he's just like saying like just like talking like Hollywood, like LA stuff. Like I know all these people, blah blah. Yeah,
Right. Right.
everyone knows everybody. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, but he was persistent. And the second time I met him, he I invited him in my studio, and since that day my life changed forever. Like literally,
Wow.
like it was probably the next month and a half that he probably brought literally like 200 different people through my studio within a month and a half. um and he was calling me every morning at 6 a.m. like, what are you doing, Mr. Stewart? When are you at the studio? I'm at the studio, blah blah blah. And he would show up every day at my studio, like with different people that he had basically worked through social media that he either met on Twitter. He was hustling Twitter for like a couple years, and he's notorious for DMing people for months until they'll get back to him, like on mass scale, like thousands of people, like artists and like anybody,
Right.
artists, models, producers, engineers, A&Rs,
So
lawyers, like
what
anybody.
I don't even know
But
why
all
I'm
hip
asking
hop.
this question, but what is his end goal? Is he just looking to
He doesn't know.
okay,
He's a loose cannon. Like he's just going. Like literally.
interesting.
But he's the person who, like, he's the most persistent person I've ever met in my entire life.
Sounds to me like a manager in the making.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, he
That
could,
that's
but
what it sounds like to me. Is a promoter or a manager, high caliber in the making. I mean that's a whole other personality type.
it is. It really is. Like I mean, like you could make a movie about this person for sure. Like,
Interesting.
we'll be in the room. Like there'd be like, say we were in this room, which happened many of times. Like we're just chilling in this room, and you know, we're just talking, and he'll pop in, and he'll be on his phone, and he'll literally start FaceTiming every single contact in his phone book, right? FaceTime, and the first person that picks up, he's gonna take his phone and he's gonna put it in front of everybody in the room's face and have you meet them, force you to meet them, like unsolicited between any parties. Like he's just like, like literally forcing people to like meet and stuff, and like it's crazy, and he's done
Dude,
it.
I gotta have this guy. I gotta have this guy on the show. This guy sounds like a completely different, like from another planet.
Yeah, no, he is. I was like, within a couple weeks of meeting him and like hanging out with him every day. Now I'm like, bro, like, are you Jesus Christ? Are you Satan? Like, what? Like, who? It was that type of energy. It was incredible energy.
Wow.
But yeah,
Wow.
so
Where's
that
he from?
he's from here. He's from Riverside, so he would literally travel 2 hours to come to my studio every day for like 6 months.
Wow.
Crazy. So that the day that I brought him in my studio was the day that I met Cheo Nash.
Okay.
And so Cheo Nash is he's T-Pain's like main artist on his record label Nappy Boy.
Mm-hmm.
So that day that I met Cheo, I brought Cheo in here, and him and that was the first. He's like, bro, I want to book a session with you. He saw the guitars, like, he's a rapper, obviously, but he, comes from a like musical background, playing guitar and
Yeah,
stuff like
because I,
that.
I saw a couple of his pieces and he's
Hmm.
playing, which is cool.
Yeah,
It's awesome to see that.
for sure. And so he fell in love with my studio instantly. He's like, yo, this is awesome. I'm like, let's
Yeah.
work. And so that first day we worked, and that day he posted my studio on his story, and T-Pain reposted it, and Johnny Shipes from Cinematic reposted it. And like,
Wow. Cool.
I didn't even realize how. I mean, obviously I knew who T-Pain was, but like the cinematic thing, I didn't realize like that was like rare of like that type of thing to happen even for him. Like, but that kind of started our relationship as working, like, as me like helping him producer, engineer, and so like, we've worked on, yeah, a ton of records since then. He's been the main artist that I've worked with a lot, like, on a bigger level. And right now they're working on mixing a couple of records that I helped produce for him that hopefully are going to be dropping pretty soon.
Very cool.
So,
Very
but
cool, man.
yeah.
That's awesome. What a crazy story.
Yeah, it's wild to look back on it, because it's like it literally changed my life, bro. Like and I'll never not say that kid changed my life. Like, him and I aren't as close now just because of COVID. Things happen. Like, the world changed a lot, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously. So like I stopped having like meetings of like, bro, it was just like, okay, so he's also like a compulsive white liar. Like, he'll lie, he won't tell you the truth about things. So he'll be like, yo, I got this person showing up at your studio at 10 a.m. and he owns a studio, whatever. Like, it doesn't, and so I show up, and there's that person, but there's another person with him, right? And then we start having a meeting, and then my door rings, and then there's another person, and within like the next 45 minutes, now there's 15 people in my studio. Like, that shit happened all the time. and he wouldn't tell anybody that anybody was like, like he would tell one person that another person was going to be there, but like no one knew why the fuck are we all sitting in this room together? Like,
Man, what a character.
yeah, it was intense. It was intense for sure, bro. But I had so many of those moments. Um, but
So,
lot,
it's like that. I don't know if you're faith based or whatever. It's just like that verse. The Lord works in mysterious ways.
bro, yeah, for real. It was that type of like level, like
Yeah,
it's
man, it's a
so
whole other
crazy.
level, bro.
So
That's
yes,
cool.
that's how I met a lot of the people that I know in the industry as far as the hip hop world, and then like obviously when you meet people, people introduce you to other people, and
Yep,
like that just branches off. So like
yep.
when it's just these branches that I can literally connect back to him, though, like whether it was directly through him or indirectly because of things. So
It's
it's
all
just
about who you know, man. I mean, you
it
got to
is.
deliver the goods. You got to have your chops and everything, but yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Uh, let's get into some gear, man.
For sure.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I was checking out the website. Some cool got some Neumann action going on.
The website was working then.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, dope. Yeah, I checked it the other day and it was acting weird. So that's good to hear.
It's funny because you and I both have similar Wix,
Which
like
layout?
just the tabs and everything. I have a similar template. I was like, yeah, man, this feels like home. This is cool. This is
Nice.
great.
Yep. Uh, yeah. So sorry. Yeah. I have the Neumann, the TLM 102. That was the first like nice mic that I bought,
Yeah.
and since that one, so the Gearless is a little outdated. So that was my main mic, and like I bought that because that's a known hip hop mic, and
Right.
it sounds really good on rappers. I bought another mic last year. I bought the Rode NTK. I don't know. It's a tube mic. They compare it to the U87, but it's obviously like way, way, way cheaper.
Right. Right.
But that mic sounded incredible. Notably on vocalists, like people like R&B singers and stuff like that. Some rappers too. So that was another mic I got. But that mic is, since I have some issues with it, so I got to send that one back. But it worked for a while. Like I used that heavily, so I don't know what happened with it. I got to send it back. But I recently just got my Townsend Lab Sphere L22, the modeling mic. So that one is super, super exciting.
Yeah, I saw that. It's
Yeah.
kind of like I think Slate came out with one of
Slate
those a
has one.
couple of years ago, and what is it, 20, 30 profiles, something
Yep.
at
Yeah.
least.
It comes stock with like I think 25, 30 different
Wow.
mic emulations.
Wow.
So far, I love it. It's incredible. Like the artists like it. Like it looks really cool too. So that's something that's dope. Like the diaphragm literally lights up. So like when people see that shit, they're like blown away.
I've got a Lewitt LCT 940, and it's basically their U47
Okay.
clone, and they have the tube with glass, so
Oh
it
yeah.
glows,
Yeah,
man, and
yeah.
it's just so sick looking. It's great.
Yeah, that's
Sounds amazing too. I mean, it sounds as close to a U47 as I've ever heard, and it just it's tubey. You
yeah.
mash the hell out of it, breaks up a little bit if you want. Oh God,
Nice.
yeah.
It's what model is it? The nine, what'd you say?
The LCT 940. So it has the dial. I think the 840 is the just the tube version. Believe it or not, a fellow friend of mine and past podcast guest actually gave me this mic.
Okay.
Literally gave it to me, and I was like, "You sure you want to give me this?" He's like, "Yeah, man. Seriously, you've helped me out in a lot of different areas of the business." I was like, "Okay, man. All right," because like once I take it, it's not coming back. And yeah, it's really cool. It's got FET to tube, and you can
Oh,
kind
okay.
of change. I always keep it on tube because I'm in rock world, so it's like everything to me is the more saturated, the better.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But it is, yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
That's what's up. You're talking about the 47. I've been using the 47 emulation on like the last sessions I've
Yeah,
used.
man, that oh god, I just can't. For vocal, just can't beat it. It's amazing how little processing you have to do.
Yeah, that's what I was
Isn't
telling the
that
artist I worked with
crazy?
this morning. Yeah, he was like, "Yeah, this sounds dope," and I was like, "Bro, I haven't even EQ'd it. It's just straight in."
I know. I know. And the other weird thing that I found out about that mic is that the top end is there, but it's not there. It's the strangest thing. You don't need to add any. Maybe just a little bit. Maybe kiss
Yeah,
it a little bit, like 10K, a little bit of air.
yeah,
But there's just nothing. Very rarely am I ever taking any frequencies out. You know, I mean, honestly, it's just you throw a high pass on there at about 80 or something, whatever,
yeah.
standard. It's just perfect.
That's what's up.
Yeah, that's crazy. Uh, what else? I mean, talk to me. What are
I
you doing
have
now for drums and for whatever?
I haven't done drums in a while. I mean my basic like drum stuff is pretty when I started doing drums I would do like as far as like room stuff or like overheads I do like Glenn Johns type miking, but
Right.
I got a stereo bar so it's just easier to do that like just throw it over the kit. That's what I do now. But now I'm gonna use this new mic for doing that too because it records in stereo. So you like I record an acoustic guitar with it. Like you throw it, you send it to the side, and then you can adjust on the on the um on the UAD. You can adjust where it's picking up from. So it's picking up from like both like the front and the back, like the figure eight style thing.
Right.
So you get the full like stereo effect. So I'm gonna probably actually try and use that for an overhead next time I do drums. Which I actually got to record some drums here pretty soon. But like drum wise, like I just use a lot of 57s.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah, bro, they sound amazing. I actually I like them as overheads too. They're amazing, amazing mics. Like if you're starting out and you're one of my drums, just get you a ton of 57s. Like just
I
tons.
mean, you could quite honestly do anything with a 57,
Yeah.
you know. Um
Yeah, I
uh,
don't think you can ever have enough of them. Like people say that and like I didn't really believe that, but like yeah, I have 5 of them and I would love more.
yeah, well, the back to the Van Halen, the first Van Halen record, the second, they were using 57s on the kicks.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? See?
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like those records have a lot of sub going on,
True, yeah.
but who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll do like 57s on my toms. I do have a MD 421, the Sennheiser, so I use
Yep.
that for like my low tom. I only have one of those because those are expensive, like they're like $400 mics.
Yeah.
I'd like to get some more of those, but I only have one at the moment. And then I'll do like for my kick, I usually use the Beta 52,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then I have a Beta 91, which is an amazing mic. I don't know if you know about it. It's like a flat mic. Um,
Yeah,
you
I've seen
literally
those ones.
just throw it in the kick, and it has the 52 will get a lot of like the attack and that I don't know that 91. The 91 actually has some attack to it too. Actually, sorry, the 52 actually has more like the mid range and it's like some of like the lower end, and then the 91 will get a lot of the sub frequencies and then more of the attack. So it's kind of has like this scoop thing to it.
The 52 to me has always been more of a boomier
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, and for whatever reason, I always kind of gravitated towards like the Audix
Mm,
6 thing.
yeah.
Um, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why. I just remember there being a little bit more attack
Oh, okay. Yeah.
away from a 52.
Exactly, yeah, and that's what I always lacked from the 52. So when I throw the 91 in there, that gets my attack.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've always, believe it or not, I've actually just used one mic in each kick drum, and I'll do parallel processing to just make shit happen.
Got you.
Uh, as much as I'd really like to, I'd like to try to do the old school thing with the like a pencil mic on the batter head, and you
Oh
flip the
yeah.
phase, and you can kind of play it because they did that with Bonham and a couple other people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know. There's so many ways to do it. And sometimes you just want to get.
Drums are a beast to do, man. It's crazy. Like, cause mostly I'm doing vocalists, and when I have to mic drums, I'm like, damn, like this is the work now. Like, this is a lot to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun though. Like once you get that template, man,
For
or
sure.
a couple of template, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've really enjoyed making drum sounds. It's hefty work, but it's
It's rewarding.
extremely rewarding, especially when you don't have to use any samples. You can really make things happen and create that own sound. That unique sound that
Yeah.
is yours.
Yep. Exactly. How many mics do you usually use on your kit?
I think I've got 16.
Oh, you do 16. Okay.
Yeah, I wish I could have more. I could if I wanted to. It seems to get the job done. Like I said, I do a lot of parallel things and
Got you.
rerouting, and it just kind of makes things happen the way I need to. Sans Amp kind of gets in there at some point,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
parallel stuff, and API 2500
I
to,
love
to to
that.
get that smack on parallel, and then just route effects however you want. I mean, dude, I've just been going really well. This last record wasn't totally dry by any means, but I don't know, man. Like,
Very raw sounding.
there's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with that dry sound. Like, I just, the older I get, the more I like organic. You know.
Yeah, as well, it's very much like that 70s sound of drum style, right? Like,
Oh yeah, some of those are tight as hell.
yeah.
Like, stupid tight.
Yep.
Like, how are you even doing this tight? Like, how are you even doing this? It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's fun.
Uh, as we kind of close out here, I've got something that I do with every guest at the end. But future plans for you, man. Like, what are you thinking as far
Um,
as 2021 and beyond?
so this year I'm definitely pushing myself heavily as a producer. So I want to get a lot more records out with artists this year. So I'm like pushing like my beat making and stuff really, really hard. Um,
Cool.
kind of not rebranding, but doing another brand for that. And separating myself as like the owner and like, engineer, and then like as a producer, like two
Right.
things. So that's one thing that I'm wanting to push very, very heavily this year. Um, and I guess that's probably the main thing. And then just like still growing my business, that's always the thing, like working with new artists and that sort of thing. I don't know. That's the big plans for this year. I love to get into another studio eventually at some point. Like, the one thing that this studio lacks is another room. If I had another room, I would have a drum kit set up all the time.
Right.
So
Right.
I can't have a drum kit set up, just, and not that I can't, but like it doesn't really work with the clientele I have right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had another room, I'd have it set up all the time, and then I could always be ready to record drums. Right now, I just have them tucked away, and when I pull them out when I need them, stuff like that. And I'd love to play more drums too. Like, I love jumping on the kit and playing, and I miss that. Um, so it'd be nice to like expand the studio eventually. I don't know if I don't know if that's something I'm looking to doing this year, but like, again, I'm always open for when the opportunity strikes, for sure.
Right.
So
Right.
wait for the next opportunity and just, working.
You looking to stay in the LA area?
For sure, most definitely. Like, this is I love Los Angeles so much. It's definitely grown to be my home. Um, Not that I couldn't do what I'm doing anywhere else, and I think it's becoming easier to do anything anywhere now. Like, you
Because
don't
of the
have,
pandemic.
because the pandemic and everything's going online. Yeah, definitely the pandemic showed people like, well, there's some jobs you don't need to be at work to
Right.
do. Like, you
Right.
can be anywhere. And that's what kind of caused a little bit of that exodus out of California, because like a lot of people are like, well, I don't need to be here anymore. Like, I can be anywhere and do this, like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Why not live somewhere else for way cheaper? Because obviously
It's
it's
rough, man. It's rough. I did the New York thing for a few years, and yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. It's insane, but it has gone down a little bit. Definitely, like housing costs have gone down since the pandemic, and since people have moved out. So that's a little good, but it's still expensive.
Right, 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 for sure. Um, well, I have a thing at the end that I do called the shootout, which is basically I'll say an industry related term to the guest, and you just say you fire back whatever word or phrase comes to mind for you.
All right, let's see.
All right, cool. Guitar
Player.
works. Drums.
Neil Peart.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's too bad, man. I'm glad I saw him when I did.
I never got the chance. I'm definitely sad about that.
Yeah. Uh, bass.
Anesthesia.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Vocal.
Lemmy. Ironically,
Yes.
I guess because you said bass and vocals, like I don't know. I don't know
Yes, man.
Lemmy.
God, yes. Like I have to take a moment here to just let
Yeah,
all that marinate.
yeah. I did get to see him. I saw Motorhead once before he passed, so that was dope.
You've been to the Rainbow?
I have not been to the Rainbow. Jeez, that one hurts actually.
Yeah, man. Well, at least go and just
Yeah,
stand there in the presence of the Rainbow, even if you can't go. I don't know what it's like over there right now, but
no, you can. That's actually one of the bars that's actually like up and going right now.
okay. Well, thank God,
Yeah.
because it's so much history.
But I shoot myself in the foot because of that. Because like literally, he would hang out there all the time. Like you could just go there and he would be. I mean, when he was not on tour,
Yeah,
obviously. But like, I'm like,
yeah.
why did
Well,
I never
yeah,
do that?
because you've been there for 11
Bro,
years.
yeah, I literally live a mile and a half from the Rainbow. I'm not that far from there.
Wow,
I live so close. I live like pretty close to the Sunset Strip.
cool, cool. So much history, man.
Yeah.
So much history. It's amazing. Um, rock.
God, the first thing I thought of Bob is because you were talking about Bob Rock. What is rock now? Where is rock headed? Like that's what I think right now. Like what's the next evolution in rock? Where does it go?
I don't know.
I think it'll always exist in some facet, but like it's definitely like it's interesting where it's coming, where it's gonna go.
It's definitely a fusion, I think, of the sampled type of thing. It's not as much of Nine Inch Nails thing. It's a little bit. It's not quite as artsy as that. It's a little bit more commercialized and polished,
For
but
sure.
there's still that lo-fi kind of overall distorted thing. Um,
Yeah, and the thing is though, it's like there's that, which is kind of newer, but like, will that like raw, like rock and roll type thing come back to where it's like, because people have done it, right? Like, especially like when you look at like bands like Greta Van Fleet, right? Like, they're
yeah,
like the Zeppelin thing, like they sound great, but like still, it's not something new. It sounds like
right,
Zeppelin, like,
right.
so is there going to be is there going to be something next that's going to like feel new and fresh, but still carry that rawness to it of like rock, like just straight rock and roll?
Yeah, interesting question.
I don't know. Yeah. That's what comes to mind for me when you talk that and rock.
It's funny that you're thinking ahead. It's
Yeah.
interesting. It's cool. Hip hop.
I love it, man. love I have all love for hip hop.
It
That's
sounds
definitely
like they're sucking you in. You
they
know.
definitely sucked me in. And now that you did that after rock, like it's like the way that hip hop artists move is incredible. Like they're so quick. They always want to be in the studio. They're always writing. Granted, the style of music is conducive to that type of quick paced thing.
Right. Right.
um but I definitely see, like, I think if a rock band is able to capture how hip hop artists move and move like that, that would definitely be a game changer for them. I don't know, being innovative and groundbreaking is a different thing, but as far as just being like marketing a band and like moving as a band, like if you can get four people in a room that literally are down to come in and write and record every single time you're in there, and push your music like that, like literally just be in the studio all the time and writing, like that's some powerful thing. And then if you have four equal people that are working just as hard as that, like that can be that could be huge.
Right. Right. It's an interesting perspective.
For sure, because hip hop artists, they're by themselves, like, so they can move quick like that. And I think that's why hip hop has also blown up the way it has, is because labels don't have to deal with an entire band anymore. Like,
Yeah.
they much rather just deal with one artist. Like, it's way easier to do that.
Yeah. It all comes down to dollars anyway.
Yeah,
You
so
know.
you can make more money off one person. You don't have to deal with four different egos or three other different egos. Like, they don't want to deal
Well,
with
not only that, but the back line and
yeah.
all the logistics go up.
For sure, yeah, yeah, yeah. It goes up tons, and so like that I think is, seeing it from the outside has been like, and now on the inside is like, I think that's why hip hop has blown up so much too, is because of that.
What are your, I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts on where, because it's been the mainstream, I'd say
We're
for
we're going to
20,
like 20, 15, 20 years, I would say.
20 years. So what do you think is going to happen here? Is this EDM, hip hop, electronic thing going to wane a little bit? Are we going to have a resurgence of organic? What do you think?
I don't know. It's so hard to. It really, really is hard to say. But it's gonna change. I think we're at a changing point right now. It's weird, like, it's been 20 years is a long time for a genre to be existing like on that level. So
Right.
it has to. There's no way it can change, and technologically things are changing. So I don't know where it's going now. Like,
I'd be curious to, when all this is, I don't know if it'll ever be over, this
yeah,
thing. I don't really see any turning back from here. It's just permanently, indelibly left a mark.
I would
But
agree.
when things do open back up, probably 2022 at this point, that's what I'm thinking. We'll see. At
Yeah,
like full capacity. It's going to be really interesting to see what that's going to be. If it's going to be more of the hip hop scene or more of the organic,
yeah.
more of the kind of band type of vibe. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you this, at least from inside the hip hop community, like, hip hop artists love rock. They love live instruments. Like, that's
Right.
also why my studios flourish so much too. Every single hip hop artist that's coming here and see my guitars, they're like, this is amazing. Like, this is so cool.
Yeah,
Like,
it might be a hybrid. I mean,
yeah, and
we're starting to see that more. So
it is for yeah, with the like the Machine Gun Kelly release, like that was more of like a hybrid of that. The word on the streets out here is that the next Kendrick album is going to be a rock album, so that could change what, you know if he when he drops, like, I mean, he's supposed to have this album in the tuck for like 2 years now. Like, if that drops and if that's what it is, like, that's going to definitely change the landscape of what other artists are doing too, because
yeah.
he's at the top there. But yeah, as far as like this whole summer like of tours, was like everyone wanted, all hip hop artists wanted, most hip hop artists wanted to tour with bands. They want a live band on stage with them.
Right. Right.
So that hybrid is definitely seeping into that world. But again, like, where is hip hop going? It's not going to be here forever. I don't know. But I think it'll be underground, like kind of where EDM is. EDM is huge, but it's still not, you know, it's not where hip hop is. But there's tons of EDM artists still.
Oh yeah, well
Crazy.
EDM. If I had to bet money on it, I would say EDM would just continue to rise for another 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, um, there's elements perhaps where guitar solos can be integrated into that world, because guitar is such a rock iconic sound anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean, Quincy Jones was doing this with Beat It and that fusion. I mean, it's not, it's almost like it's all been done before. It's
The
just,
technology's changed and made it, the production
yeah,
level gone up.
yeah. So, I don't know. It does make you think of trying to put out a couple of things that have wobble and a solo or something. Or
Yeah.
it's almost like you have to have a conglomerate where there's a hip hop frontman and then kind of the rock thing, but it's like, dare I say, it's a terrible reference, but the Limp Bizkit thing in the 90s
Kind
where,
of. No, that's a great reference.
you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know why I'm going through this Fred Durst thing right now, because he always drove me crazy. But I gotta look, Woodstock '99. There's something about that video where that guy just freaking rules the roost of that place.
Yeah. That
And
crowd is
I
insane.
just can't not sit. I have to give credit where credit's due. I hate to say it, but
It's that energy that energy that they like. You feel that watching the video. You can only imagine being there. Like,
oh god,
that's insane.
man,
Like,
yeah,
the
yeah.
energy in that video is incredible. Like, it
I
gives you
gotta
chills
say
watching.
that those records growl.
Yeah, they have the
They
production
were
was crazy.
able to really make. I think they growl more than the 311 stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, they definitely do. They've got the tight low end, but it's fat. They some good engineering on the earlier records.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that's a great reference. It's like if that was like 70% rock and then like the rest, the 30% hip hop, like kind of what new metal was, right? Like it
right.
all had that kind of like hip hop influence to it too. But like if you flip that and just have like the 70% or like 60% hip hop and then the 40% rock, like what that would sound like.
Yeah, I think you take Prince, and there's this pop thing, obviously because of what he was doing with the sequencing and all that, but also blues,
Yeah,
and blues arrangements, and souling and those tones, very musical. So then there's the blues element too, which is, and I'm in that area, blues and rock. So it's like, well, blues has been around for 100 years.
yeah.
So I wonder if that may have something to do with, I don't know. Interesting stuff, man. It's cool.
I Bro, I could talk about this all day.
I've got like 3 or 5 more here. Compression.
API. But
Yeah.
no, but in all honesty, I was going to tell you, I've been using the 2500 on a lot. I used to use I was using there's a Kramer Pi that I would use a lot. But now I tend to be like my ears liking the API more than anything right now on
Oh, that
vocals.
thing's nuts, man. And
Yeah.
even I'll use it as the keychain compressor
Oh,
for
okay.
side chaining on
Yeah, yeah.
bass,
Okay.
with the kick and snare.
I gotta try that.
Oh, dude. Oh, and you just got to kiss it. Like, 1 to 2
Well,
dB.
it has it's one of the rare plugins that I like how versatile it is. I usually like plugins that don't give you very many options that do good things,
That
but
thing's
that
a
one
nut.
you can do so much on it. It's
Oh
insane.
yeah, yeah. Like bass, guitar. I actually haven't tried vocals with it. I'll try it. See what happens. I'm more of just like the classic 1176
76, yeah.
LA2A type of, and then hitting a little bit of the Pugue Fairchild.
670, yep.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll do that too. I do that. I use that on my master bus a lot, but I'll do the 1176 is always the last compressor in my vocal chain for sure.
yeah.
So usually the API would be the first one, and then I have another one in there like a RVox or like a R compressor in the middle somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and then the 76 on the back end.
Now, dare I say it, and yeah, I am going to say it. I almost feel like the Bomb Factory 1176 is the best out of all the.
You know what? Okay, so you're not the only one that thinks that. Some people swear by that thing.
That thing is a freaking monster.
I've been doing more experimenting with it. I've been experimenting with all of them because I have three. Right, I have the Waves,
You have the
1176.
CLA.
I have the CLA 76. I have the
Yeah.
Bomb Factory 76, and then I have the legacy version of the UAD 76. So I've usually been using the UAD at the end of my chain, but I've been doing parallel compression. I've been using the Bomb Factory 76 for my parallel compression on my vocals, and I really really like the way that sounds.
Dude, it's stupid. It's stupid for like a stock plugin how good that thing is.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, I mean, I don't even use the CLA 76. I use the LH2A. I have an actual LH2A
Oh,
hardware,
nice.
but I don't want to be printing all day long. I'll print like when I'm tracking, I'll print, or if it's really something important like bass or vocals. But if you're doing like background vocal, I'm not going to sit there and print it 12 times. So, or on a stem or whatever, stereo.
Yeah.
Stereo stem, but they nailed the LA 2A CLA 2A thing. Like they nailed that. I
Got
feel
you.
like, especially with the attenuation for the high frequency. Dude, that Bomb Factory, man. That thing is nuts.
They all sound different though. That's the thing. The
They
CLA
do.
versus they all sound very, very different, which is crazy. But I love the simplicity of those ones too. That's why I like it. Like it's just
Yeah.
the two knobs and the ratio, and that's it.
EQ. I mean, you can go a lot of different ways with that, but
EQ Fab Filter, man. The Fab Filter Pro Q3 I fell in love with that thing. I mean, I love the stock. Again, here's the thing, everyone listening, you don't need to buy shit. Like the stock plugins, especially on Pro Tools, you can get away with it. Their stock parametric EQ is amazing.
yeah, what is it, 7, whatever it is? I use that thing all the time. The
Yeah,
Mod
I
7 or whatever.
use it a lot. And the thing that I think that like the Pro Q3 and like the visual EQs kind of they don't help you train your ear. Like
That's right.
it's very helpful to use the ones that you can't see things because like as using computers and like looking at things like we become visual where it's like no it's not visual like use your ears and like what are your
Yes.
ears telling you like where they need to cut and that's kind of why I like the factory one on Pro Tools the 7 but there's some crazy features on the Pro Q3 that I really, really like.
Yeah, because you can isolate.
Oh yeah,
Each
and the type of shelving that you can do on the high and low pass filters is crazy. Like that's super incredible. And then you can like do like, I guess it kind of like hits certain frequencies when you do like the little compressor type thing on it. Like a multi-band almost.
I've got a multi-band compressor. I find it really helpful sometimes with low end issues.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll throw it on bass, kind of
Which
like at
one
the
is that?
man. It's not the Fab. It's another company that puts it out. And there's like 6 bands on there that you can play with, and I just find that it really helps kind of in that 80 to 120 range. Like if you got a really thick bass and you don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
It's just that frequency's poking out a little bit too much. That usually kind of nails it for me. And it'll be the last thing on the bass master bus.
Got you.
Literally I mean, if it just needs to be kissed a little bit.
Got you.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very useful. I find myself never really using multi-band compression unless it's kind of that low end area, that low pocket.
Yeah, I haven't really tried it on that. Usually, I'll use multi-band compressors for kind of like always for vocal because I'm just vocal based now. Like
Yes.
I'm just focusing on vocals.
Yep.
And I'll usually, I have a de-esser, but then I'll hit it again with a multi-band compressor and kind of control the. I use the waves, the C4 plug-in, and then control like again that same like harshness range, like hit it again if it needs to be hit, and then like able to like let the air go through too on the other end.
It's funny. I've found with the U47, I don't have to DS as much, if not at all.
Oh, okay.
And on top of that, if I've the SM7, I've found I've had to because you've got to give it. It's just it's an SM7. You got to give it more love, and when you give it more love in the high range, you gotta
Change
DS.
those frequencies, yeah.
I'll be honest with you. For years now, I actually manually go in and ticket. I'll automate each S.
Really?
Yeah, it's the only way. It's the only way I can get things to sound as natural as possible without. I actually don't even use a de-esser. If
So it's
I,
just it's volume automation then. Got
it's
you.
tedious as hell. It'll. I mean, if you're doing it on a 4-minute track, it takes about. I don't know. I could probably do it in about an hour.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it ranges anywhere. It depends on the person, depends on the song, depends on the genre. But what I've found is anywhere from a 5 to 7 dB duck, and you gotta pass through and make sure you're not nicking anything. But
Got you.
I don't know, man. It's the only way I can really get things to. I think I saw the guy from what's the Warren Hewart
Right,
what's
yeah.
yeah. I think he did it years ago in a video. He wasn't doing it as drastically as I started doing it, but I kind of
Oh,
took
but
that
he was talking about
idea.
automating the S's and T's and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then I honestly, if I need to do a little de-essing, it'll just be that stock Pro Tools de-esser at zero point 0.1 dB, which
Mm,
sounds ridiculous, but when I watch it, it's going down and I'm hearing it,
got you.
and that also bothers me because I'm losing presence. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It's the only way I can get things to really do what I.
Whatever works, man. That's the thing. That's the other
Yeah.
thing. There's rules, but there's not rules. Like
The only rule is there
there are
there are no rules. Delay.
H delay. That's my go-to delay. That's on all my delay buses.
Yeah.
I really like that. It has a really like super usable. The one thing it doesn't have is it doesn't have like the ducking feature where it'll duck under like vocals and stuff like that. Um, the stock Pro Tools delay it has that, which is really cool.
Right.
But it has the high and low pass like the filters on it, and then it has the ping pong set. It's super easy to use. I love it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Uh, Reverb.
Valhalla. I'm actually gonna probably after this. I need to get the. I'm gonna do a mix, and they're using the vintage verb on it, and I'm like, all right, I guess I got to get it now.
Cool. Cool.
So I'll have fun with that. But I've actually been liking the reverb that I've been most using recently is the Fab filter, the R verb. That reverb is there's so it's that reverb is intense.
Do you have the Slate Everything bundle?
I don't have any Slate plugins.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah,
yeah.
they've got the reverb package, and it's just one plugin, and they have hundreds of profiles. Holy crap.
Dang.
Yeah, Bukasti and Lexicon. I have I've got some outboard
Reverbs.
toys, and I gotta say, man, there's something about that outboard. Every single time, there's just something sweeter about it. I don't care what anybody says. The plugins are great. I use it in 80-90% of the workflow. I
I
don't know,
got one.
man. There's
I got one. I have the Avalon 737, and it's incredible.
it's got to be. I've never gone through one before, but I've heard great things.
Yeah, it's paired with that Rode mic. Um, like just the character and detail that you get through it is insane. Like
Yeah.
you hear like just like you hear inside the person's mouth like that subtle
Wow.
like things. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of
and I
like
find
ASMR. Like
yeah, I find if you do printing with, an analog effect, it's almost like you're just screwing around with it less later on.
mm,
It's there. It seems like there's more there. You're not playing around with trying to EQ certain things. It's just there, and you leave it there as a stem.
yeah, yeah,
And that's another. It's another psychological thing of
for sure.
like just stop playing with things. Distortion.
Uh, the Waves Berserk distortion. I use that all the time on
Cool.
808. That's my
Cool.
go-to 808 distortion. It's actually it's absolutely incredible. It has so many like I just scroll through presets on that until it sounds good, and then I can go from there. I mean, I do that a lot on plugins, but like that one especially, like really really cool distortions on it. Saturations though, I use a saturation knob from This is the best saturation knob ever. The Soft Tube.
I know, man.
That
I
thing's crazy.
I I use it regularly when required.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah. It can be
It's
transparent. It cannot be transparent. Like it's really and it's again it's those one knob things that are so fascinating to me. It's just like it's so easy to use.
it's just enough.
Yep.
It's just on anything. It's
Yeah, you.
just enough.
I've used it on everything pretty much.
Well, and speaking of Satura, again, Slate, their tape machines, oh, dude,
Oh,
great
that's one
stuff.
thing I want to start diving into is tape machines. So they're everything bundle you pay outright or is it subscription?
I believe I'm grandfathered in. I know this because I'm doing my QuickBooks right now for 2020.
Hmm.
I'm grandfathered in at $14.99 a month. I don't know what it is now, but I jumped like when they released this thing in 2017 or 2018. Dude, I don't subscribe to anything, and I was like, I have to get this because there were a couple of items that I used of his previously, and I really liked,
Hmm.
and just seeing all the analog vintage rack bundles that they had. I was like, it just spoke more to me than UAD or
Gotcha.
Waves or whatever. And I already had some of that. I never got like actual sets like the silver bundle or whatever.
Got you.
But, I was like, man, this is just like analog goo. I've got to get, and I mean, it is the summing
Got you.
plugins and the tape machines. It's just it's a vibe, man. It is a vibe. I
Is
think
that
you'll
the
enjoy it.
API that you're using from the Slate?
No, I'm using the Waves.
The Waves, okay.
Yeah, I think we
Because
have the
they have
same
it,
thing.
right? They have the same one on the Slate.
Yeah, it's probably in one of their like 500 series
Got you.
profiles. They're weird. Like they have things in 500 series.
Okay.
It's still the thing, but it's the layout of the window,
Got
so
you.
you got the virtual mixing rack and you can stack all within one plugin and all that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But then the tape machines and the other like the mastering units, there's a lot of cool stuff in there. Very, very, very analog. Probably the most analog sounding plugins I've ever used. And it's like,
Interesting.
yeah, man. I mean, for $15 a month or whatever, even if it's $30 a month
Still worth it.
now, yeah, so worth it. And it's the subscription is for life. Whenever there's a new update,
You
they
get it.
don't charge. You just re-download. All right, last one, which is pizza.
Pizza, New York.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I miss New York. I need to go back.
When was the last time you were there?
I was in New York in 2018 or 2019. Winter of 2019, I think, actually.
I was up there
Yeah.
2019, yeah.
So did a trip to the city back then, just hanging out. But yeah, I love New York a lot, and that pizza there is amazing.
Yeah.
I prefer New York pizza style pizza over Chicago or over deep dish for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I've heard LA actually has some pretty good pizza out there. Certain
Yeah,
places.
there's some decent places, but still, it's not like once you've had New York pizza, you're like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's no turning back.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, cool, man. I got one more question for you that I ask everybody, which is if you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what would you tell them?
oh man.
We always throw this one right at the end, and it's usually the same reaction. I enjoy it. You
Yeah,
know,
no, no, it's a great question for sure. 15-year-old self started even playing guitar. Um, I think maybe embrace technology even more than I already did. And
mm,
maybe like to kind of lead myself to embrace like social media more than I already did and like maybe think
yeah,
more outside the box about that. Because I definitely like I got to the point like we already talked about earlier, but as far as like in my head, I felt like the old like, like 70-year-old grandpa that's like, like thinks what the kids are doing is crazy, like or like,
right.
so if I could have gone into everything without having that mentality and like really embracing like, all right, we this new platform, Twitter or like, Facebook or whatever, just jump on it and like just start exploring, like see what's good about that and just dive into it and see where it takes you. That sort of thing.
For sure.
So
Cool, man. Your social media, feel free to send me the links. I'll have them down in the description box below. And for those of you listening and not watching, if you're
I
driving or
definitely will.
whatever, they'll
Right
be
now,
there.
I'll do a disclaimer. I do not have an Instagram or Facebook, not by choice though. My Instagram and Facebook, my personal pages got hacked and deleted.
Oh
So
boy.
this has been since August of last year, so I haven't had them since then. I just, like I've been back and forth, like trying to figure out if I can get them back, and then I'm at the point right now where I'm gonna redo those. So I just got to do
Okay.
it and have enough content to start pushing out consistently. Other than that, like I'm pushing my social media account for my Instagram for the studio, and then like I'm hitting TikTok really heavy too, as you know, like
Yeah.
that's
Oh yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I mean, that honestly, that's the main one right now. I think for another year or so, it's gonna be the primary
Maybe
outlet.
longer. I mean, if we think about Instagram's been there since 2011, 2010. Like we're already a decade into that, and it's still super relevant. Facebook
Yeah.
too. I mean, less on the younger generations, but like I feel like we got some length with TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a lot easier building on TikTok than Instagram for me peaked personally when I was back in 2017.
Okay.
That was when it was really peaking for me. I was getting the most returns on it.
Hmm.
And now TikTok is just much easier. I mean, I love Instagram because it's a gallery and it's
For
kind
sure.
of a get the full picture and the history of
Yeah.
the profile. But TikTok is where it's at. And I can't believe I'm saying it because this time last year, I created one, wasn't really into it, deleted it for a few months, about 6 months, and then there was an opportunity that opened up to work with TikTok, and I ended up doing that. They
Oh,
reached out to me and did that for about a month, and now I'm kind of in whether I want to be or not. They sucked me in, man, but
dang.
I'm
Yeah,
very grateful.
for sure.
It was a learning experience, and it really did make me appreciate that style of content creation. It's just complete.
I'm right there with you.
It's cool. It really is cool. It's working. I will continue to do it until it doesn't work anymore.
For sure. Agreed. I'm right there with you.
Cool, man. Any last words, my friend?
Um,
Who's 3,000 miles away, basically, or at least
yeah.
2,500.
Wait, where are you at exactly?
North Carolina.
Oh, you're North Carolina. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Whoever's watching this, be good to each other. There's too much crazy stuff going out
Too much
there.
bullshit out there, man.
Yeah, spread love. I don't know. That's it. Like be kind to each other. Like we're all going through so much stuff. Like it's
Yeah.
a crazy time. Have some empathy towards people. I don't know.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's
Yeah.
good. Well, look, I've got a trip going out to Phoenix sometime soon. We'll flesh it out. Got a couple of buddies out there. But it's 4 or 5 hours. I want to get to LA. I haven't been there
Yeah,
yet,
it's
believe
it's
it or
six
not.
it's six it's 6 hours outside LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. If
So
you are ever here, I would love to have you out to the studio. That would be amazing.
be cool, man. Cool little hang for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Well, that should do it, folks. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the Jason D'Amico Show. It's been a pleasure talking with our new friend Stewart Tuttle. Definitely check out what he's got to offer at the Alter Studios in LA. And check out the links below in the description box. And we will see you all later.
Peace.